Dobar dan, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to this session, City Center Rejuvenation, supporting local SMEs in their transition towards a digital and green economy. So the city centers have been affected by the COVID pandemic and the rise in online shopping. But the focus of our session today is going to be on the measures that need to be taken on EU, national, regional, and local level for city center rejuvenation, as well as for the digital and green transformation of retail SMEs, to ensure not just that they survive, but also thrive. So what we are going to do in this session is hear from 3 inspirational stories from 3 different actors in the retail ecosystem, after which we will debate in an interactive way what the views of the delegates are on the measures needed to support that transformation. So we will want to hear your ideas and insights. We also have a policymaker, Christine Schreiber, with us, the director of Ecosystems 1, Chemicals, Food, Retail, DG Grow, listening. So your inputs are very welcome. And I will be facilitating this session today. I'm Marieta Novak, and together with me in the online community is my colleague from the Association of Facilitator, Gerardo de Lutzenberger. So we are going to weave in together people here as well as our online colleagues. With us from Finland will be joining in also Raquel Benmergui, who is our visual graphic recorder, and she will at 2 times summarize for us what she has been hearing and give us a bigger picture in terms of imagery and some key ideas. So this session, even though it's late in the afternoon, it's going to be super fast and quite dynamic. So for the start, I'm going to ask 2 people, representatives of business associations. This will be Veronique Willems first, and then Neil McMillan. I will give you the word in a minute. And from you, we would like in really very succinct way, in a couple of minutes, just to illustrate us why it's important that we talk about this. What are some examples from the field that makes it important for us to be here today and address this issue? So first, let's welcome to the stage Veronique Willems, Secretary General of SME United, the organization that represents the crafts and SMEs in Europe. 2 minutes and a half.
Thank you. We will do our best. Yes, and thank you everybody for being here and online joining this workshop with Eurocommerce and SME United on a very important topic. When I was visiting European areas and cities in the past years, I've learned from many of the entrepreneurs and the organizations of entrepreneurs that many areas were getting deserted, rural areas, that in city centers there were many stores which were empty, that there was a desertification of city and town centers. Digitalization, of course, further increased the pressure on the livability of city centers, rural areas, and this has been further increased the past few years by COVID, or further reinforced. If we look at where authorities are investing, we see that, of course, they are investing a lot in metropolitan areas. But if we want to make sure that also rural areas and more distinct city centers are continuing their role within the community, providing day-to-day services and products to their citizens, providing employment to those citizens, then we have to make sure that the infrastructure, and especially the digital infrastructure, but also training offer, is livable everywhere. And that's why we joined forces with Eurocommerce to discuss this topic with you today. Neil will further set a bit the scene of where the challenges lie, and then I hope in the discussions along with you And in the best practice examples that we have, you can get further ideas on how to improve the situation for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronique. And you have already announced Neil Macmillan, Director of Advocacy and Trade of Eurocommerce, representing retail and wholesale in Europe.
Thank you very much indeed, Marietta, and thank you very much also, Veronique, for organising this with us together, and also for the SME Assembly for hosting us here. As Veronique said, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how the ecosystem, which is a town essentially, works together. And as far as we're concerned, obviously for us retailers, an extremely important part of that, but also wholesalers as well. But I wanted really to stress one thing, that towns are an ecosystem that feed on each other. That's the public services available there, the private services available there, other businesses, and then obviously retailers. And if one part of that ecosystem starts to decay or die, there's a real problem for the rest of those businesses and a real problem for the community in which they are operating, in which they serve. And I wanted to give you a few examples on that. First of all, in town centres, but actually across the retail and wholesale sector, like most other businesses, 99% of them are SMEs. 90% of them are single traders or people with less than 5 employees. So there are a lot of very small and often very vulnerable businesses in our sector, and I think therefore also a lot of vulnerable businesses in town centres as well. And I use the word town centres because, as Veronique has said, metropolitan centres have got a slightly different problem, which is at the moment still a lot of people working from home, and therefore some of the support services in those metropolitan areas are under pressure. But what we've seen over many years now, and it is many years, is that middle-sized towns and rural areas are losing some of those basic backbones that they need to survive. And I'll give you another example. There was a recent survey done by our German member of how much people use towns for what. And they said essentially that 56% of people said, my main reason for going into town is to go shopping. That if somebody goes shopping, they will then go to a restaurant or they will go to a café to have a meal or a cup of coffee, and they may stay on to go to the cinema or go to a theatre. So there are lots of reasons that people go into towns, but shopping is really quite an important one of them. And if I tell you that across Europe, the footfall, i.e. the people that visit shops, is falling and has been falling for many years now in town centres. In Spain, for example, it's down 20% over the last year. In France, it's down 35% over the last year. And if shops don't have people going into them and buying stuff, they don't survive for very long. So as I said at the beginning, empty shops, empty restaurants with no consumers means also empty towns. And that will affect everybody who's trying to operate in that town. So we need a real action to think about how we deal with this, and it needs money, and it needs original thinking and ambition. So my last point, and I'm probably already over my 2.5 minutes, but Veronique was shorter than I was, so I'm making up for some of the time, is I think we'll hear from the other speakers some really good examples of how renewal can work. But renewal will only work if everybody in the community, that's the citizens who live there, the public sector, the private sector, businesses who are operating there, are actually drawn into that planning. Because if you push something in one direction, it might actually harm another part of the ecosystem. And that will include things like mobility. If you ban cars completely from a community, then people won't go to the shops. If you ban lorries, they won't be able to deliver their goods. So those are two examples of how it really is important for the whole community to be drawn into this. And I know I've overstayed my time, so I'll shut up and go away. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you both to Veronique and Neil. You're just bringing very concrete examples from the ground, as we say, to frame us into the session. And now we are going to hear from 3 diverse actors what they are putting into place to address this issue and to help cities rejuvenate. I will first just name them so that we have a picture together here in the hall as well as online. So here physically with us is Marijke van Hees, President of Platform Retail Agenda and Dutch politician. Welcome. Then we have Tanja Rehberger, Project Manager of Region 4.0 from Kufstein. And online, we have Thibault Le Carpentier from the City Center Manager Club in charge of institutional relations. And we are first going to begin with Marijke van Hees, who is chairman of the Dutch Retail Agenda on behalf of the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate. And she's also the chairman of the advisory board on the regulatory burden in the Netherlands. So Retail Agenda started as an initiative of the Dutch Ministry of Economy and Climate, bringing together the public and private sector to improve the livability of our cities. So your 5 minutes to share with us a couple of examples what you are doing that can inspire us. The floor is yours.
I'm wired, Patricia, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to tell something about our development of cooperation, I call it. You had a nice introduction, so I skipped already the first sheet and go to the second one. In this 7 years, we focus on the common goal, but we set up the agenda not only by the deplorable situation in retail, but in an integrated approach to strengthen the city centers, also in small cities, but also in larger cities. And it's mentioned already, it's a platform that I chair with private and public organizations at the table and a more strategic level on the national level, but also with a bottom-up approach in each city that wants to cooperate with us, and that's already the half of the cities in the Netherlands. There's about 160 cities that all made a deal with the Ministry of Economic Affairs, and we call it a retail deal, to work on the integrated approach to set up new life into the city centers. And we do this in a way that we also involve the provinces, because a lot of issues are about priorities that needs to be coordinated into a region. So it's also important to see the issues at the local level in a more broader perspective. We did set up a lot of projects, I will sum up some later. And the last development is that the Ministry of Economic Defense, by a political action in our parliament, got offered 100 million euros to set up a large transformation program in the coming years. I will tell something about it later. What's very important is, in our view now, is that it's about the livelihood of our city centers. It's about that we need in the solutions an integrated approach. So at the national level, we have these private and public organizations working together, but at the local level, you also need the cultural organizations, you need the events, you need the citizens themselves to involve them in a way in what is the essence of our city center. It's not the empty shops. What is it then? What is the unique position of our city center in what will it bring to our citizens? And Neil said already, 56% is shopping orientated, but people want to do a lot more in the city. They want to meet, they want to go to the terrace, and we know by COVID how important this feeling is. So in our agenda, we emphasize the integrated approach at the local level. And we have 3 strategic lines. We agreed on it last year that we focus on. It's the center approach, it's about transformation. It's about make this livelihood and these empty shops a goal to set up at the local level and try to speed up this transformation. And that's why this 100 million euro is needed. It's because in a lot of city centers, the retail was the backbone for the profit in the retail. But now you want another function. Perhaps you want to live there, you want houses there, or you want a cultural or social meeting point, and all these activities earn less. So there is a deficit in the economic basis of this retail. And when you want to change an area of retail into a different functions, that you have a problem in especially in smaller towns and medium-sized towns. So this 100 million euros is needed for experiments to try to move retail estates companies and shop owners and all the other participants in the center to set up area transformation programs and try to speed up this transformation. But it's not about stones only. It's also about the economic basis that needs to be vivid into the city center. So supporting our shop owners by tell them, what is your business model? It changes, but do you know what it is? Do you know how you depend on your neighbors? Do you know how you depend on your employees that can use social media in a way that really has to be incorporated in your business model? You're not doing this. So we have e-learnings and stimulus for this type of thinking, and we moved them to these organizations by our professional organizations that supports our developments. And then it's the food, it's the non-food, and some colleagues are in this place. So it's interesting also to talk about what type of organizations can help to speed up this transformation. And at last, the digitalization. And that's it. I also have a question about, because in setting up all these local programs and also innovation labs, we have a lot of new experiences what works. But when at the local level people are doing this, it also leads to a lot of fragmented solutions. So the backbone of the digitalization in the use of standards, in the use of business models that also apply to the IT part, we need to think about the standardization issue in a higher level. And that's not a national level. That's a European level. Because even on a national level, these problems can't be solved. And it costs a lot of money, all these particular solutions at this local level for this digitalization issue. So it's a need to talk about. I'm really interested if it fits to your ideas. And it's important also to push up the knowledge sharing of programs Kufstein and other areas in Europe to have the best practices joined and to try to level up the ideas to a higher level and to speed up the innovation in the city centers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and just for your ideas. And Mareike has already made a link to the town of Kufstein in Austria. So I invite Tanja Rieberger, who is the project manager of Region 4.0. So let's continue the story with your examples.
Thank you very much. Hello.
It works.
It works. Perfect. Thank you very much. I was invited to talk about the projects when it comes to regional development. So in order to give you an overview, I'm talking about a region with 50,000 inhabitants, over 12 villages. We have almost as many employees as inhabitants, and we have almost 7,000 companies. Big ones such as Novartis or Stihl, and really a lot of women and men shows. So of course we need a lot of employees and we need a lot of expats with really special knowledge. How do we get them? So on the one hand, of course, we create awareness and we create networks for how livable it is, our region is. I mean, we live where people go on holidays. For example, Marika told me about that. And we create awareness for that. We also established an international school for the kids of expats to actually go to school, get a good education, because we want to make them stay, we want to make them integrate. We organize events on a monthly basis to get to know the region and also stay longer than 2 years, because otherwise we start over and over again. We're finding new employees and making them leave again. So this is one part. The second one is bringing innovation to city centers. So how we do that, we started a founders competition. So we were looking for innovative concepts for city centers. Not the ones to cover your daily needs, because we know we have shopping malls and we have supermarkets. But what we were looking for concept stores, experiences when you go shopping. The things that make you stay in a city center and where you just think like, yeah, I had a good time there. I was not just feeling like there's nothing to do or see here. So the winners of this competition won prizes of local companies. So we tried to create a network. They want prices such as services of local graphic designers or lawyers in order to get them connected and also keep the business within our region. We got 5 concepts nominated, or actually who won. Those are concept stores between restaurants and architects. Those are the ones having to do with sports and clothes and so on and so forth. And last but not least, I want to ask you one question. That's why the toothbrush was there. What do you do in order to find an electric toothbrush? Well, the first thing is probably you go online and search for it. And this is why I believe it is really important to be present online for shops. Present does really not mean having an online shop, because realistically seen, it is impossible to keep it updated for a shop owner. So this is why we also believe that it is really important to provide great customer service offline. Who has ever had the experience of having purchased something online and then having a problem with it and calling a call center, being forwarded over and over again and just wishing for a shop to go to and get your problem solved? It happened to me just last week with my toothbrush. So this is why I want to create awareness for you have to shine with your customer service offline, besides being present online. And how do we do this? Well, we organize workshops. We started to analyze websites and social media profiles of our local businesses and found out that they actually don't know how to use social media. But we also found out that they are really bad sometimes at complaint management or how to present their products. So this is why we organized workshops when it comes to social media advertising, posting, how to take nice pictures with your smartphone, because not everyone can afford a photographer. And also how to write nice texts to put it on your post and actually inform your customers. And on the other hand, we created awareness and trained when it comes to, as I mentioned, complaint management, service product presentation, multi-sensory shopping, or also just to talk properly, so when it comes to rhetorics. And of course, after us, how did we come actually up with this input? Well, we analyzed the websites and the profiles, and on the other hand, we did what you should do, we asked. And we asked over again and received a lot of feedback and input like, can you please continue with the next social media lecture, because I'm still missing that part, or can you please do this? And there is one thing that really stuck into my head, taking into consideration that most shop owners within the city centers are not digital natives like I am. One guy told me, you just took away my fear of social media. Now I can do a post and inform my customers, and I'm not scared of it anymore. And I think this is this basic education which is really needed. So now I lost my last part. I'm sorry for that. And there are some more projects we are doing. I think I'm running out of time, so I'll just touch on them shortly. When it comes to traffic within city centers, we created traffic calm areas. This means cars are allowed to enter at a speed of 20 kilometers per hour, but they can just stay for a couple of minutes and have to leave again. We created the position of a mobility representative in order to deal with car sharing or bike sharing and also public transport. We also try to create awareness and also how important the network is. This is why we bring together local farmers with restaurants, because not everything has to do circles around the world. There is so much value within our region. So to wrap it up, I think we just have to listen what is actually needed. We have to help together, and we also have to provide the help. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for a very lively illustration of what's happening in your locality. And now we are welcoming with us Thibault Le Carpentier, who is joining us online from the City Center Manager Club. And Thibault is in charge of institutional relations. Welcome, Thibault. You have about max 5 minutes to share what solutions you and your team are putting into place to bring more livability to city center. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. First of all, I wanted to apologize for not being with you today, but as you may know, these 3 days are also those which correspond to the annual Congress of Mayors of France, with a crucial vote today and tomorrow, so I need to stay in Paris. The club was created in France at the beginning of the century, Our profession initially mainly focused on, say, promotion and support for traders, has gradually evolved into new practices, including support for business creators and the fight against commercial vacancy. You have an example on this image. This study have led our club to propose a business reference framework in 3 parts: managerial commerce, to correspond to initial activities, city center manager, to take these new activities into account, and finally, more recently, managers of city and territory, to correspond to the evolution of local responsibilities distribution. To help our managers, we also developed a collaborative platform which today brings together 12 micro think tanks for local and national actors, public and private ones, and also for solution providers. The importance of commerce for cities could be summarized with a single observation. 81% of French people think that city centers are in decline, a decline which they imply to the difficulties of trade. Over the past 5 years, so largely before the COVID disease, we can observe that 55% of municipalities experience an important loss of point of sale. But it would be probably just as interesting to understand why 23% have seen an increase of the number of stores. This drop is associated with an increasing risk of business failures, strongly correlated with the size of the municipality in terms of number of inhabitants. The main problem are, for example, in Paris, Lyon, or Marseille or Lille, for example. In any case, these developments call for a better understanding of the mechanisms that support the performance of city center commerce. Still, one of the main weaknesses of the city centers in terms of commerce is linked to the virtual absence of communication, understood here in the sense of advertising and local events. Compare them to their competitors in the periphery. Thereby, if the stores of the outskirts of some centers represent only 11% of all points of sale in France, this corresponds to 60% of media spending, almost 70% of promotional action, and over 90% of internet algorithms. In order to attract customers and to increase frequency to visit, it is essential for city centers to have a real marketing strategy as well as a real branding one. Many studies have shown in France that if 80% of states of innovative technological solutions are successful, 90% of deployment on a larger scale fail. These failures are even stronger when we speak about local marketplaces. All of our experience shows that it is urgent to support local merchants over at least a year and probably more until they can really be autonomous with modern tools. Of course, communication alone cannot ensure the performance of commerce and the attractiveness of city centers. To do this, we have in France various legal and technical tools, some of which have shown their total relevance. For example, in the town of Montargis, the use of the vacancy tax allowed to reduce the number of empty stores from 10% to 2% in the main street in less than 2 years. In another way, in Châteauroux, the carrying of rents by municipality have made it possible to launch 33 new activities in 5 years with a survival rate of over 90%. Unfortunately, and I think it is our main problem in France, most cities do not know enough about these tools or are reluctant to use them. For more than a year, the CMCV has been working to respond to the various problems of city center and commerce with a new tool that we call FEED. The particularity of these tools is that its function not only as an investment fund bringing together private and public actors, but above all providing support for traders installed in the shop acquired by this fund. This tool is not intended to respond directly to the increased risk of commercial vacancies, for example, linked to the current health crisis, but to act on the very foundation of commercial performance. We are convinced that it's by the day-to-day exchange between all the local actors of commerce, whether public or private, that we will be able to develop attractive city centers. In our opinion, we need to create a new relationship based on data sharing, particularly in consumer practices and their purchasing habits. Thank you.
Thank you to Thibault Le Carpentier for, again, a very rich combination of solutions. And now we are becoming a bit more inclusive also of the audience. In this first part, we will give a few minutes for questions coming from you or from the online audience to any of the speakers here. And then we want to have much more time for your own ideas and insights. So, is this a question? Could you just come here and tell who you are and briefly ask a question and preferably tell who might be the best person to answer?
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Wienand Kwartvlieg. I'm here for the Dutch Confederation of SMEs. I think there was a very interesting parallel between this session and the previous session where I was. In the previous session, there was an example of a digital network being developed, and it went well. So the next year, they developed a digital house, which went well. And then the next year, they developed a physical house for the digital economy. So it started in the digital field and moved to the personal, to the human, to the physical. Now, what Tanya said was, in fact, the same. And she said it's very important to digitalize, but then you, as a shop owner, you also have to develop your direct relation with your customers. So we are talking about digitization, which is very important, it must happen, but is not essential also that from the beginning we keep in mind to find the right balance between digitization and the old physical relationship. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Yeah. Any other questions? Just raise a hand if there's a question still in the field. Not yet. I have a question, and then we'll check with the online participants if there is anything coming from the virtual world. I kept hearing, we need different stakeholders coming together for the city center rejuvenation. So from public authorities to business owners to innovators, etc., to people who are providing different services. How do we start? How to get that? And maybe that's a question for Marijke van Hees. So, how do you move this forward?
It's not one solution for this, but the bottom-up approach needs support from local governments and also from professional organizations at the local level. For example, the shop owners, they all have a membership of an organization for non-food, or they have a membership for the restaurant representation organization. And when these local people from these networks join their forces and talk about their city with the mayor of the city and the alderman and the employees of the city, and they make up their plans together, not separate domains, only living and economy and healthcare, but really think about your city as an integrated issue. Then they can join their forces and then can pick up the quick wins, but there are always quick wins. For example, how does the street look like? Is it possible to make it more lively? Is it possible to have some taxis to have this to do together and no free riders anymore? So that are the easy solutions, I suppose. But also the area development and the large logistics changes in the city center, that needs to be needs investments, and there is always the city is needed. So in our approach, we support also the networks of the local governments and provinces to join their forces and think about the solutions. But you need the energy of the early adapters and the energy to combine this into a joint effort to set up things in motion.
Yeah, thank you. So here, somebody who really drives this, bringing people together, and also a higher kind of vision and purpose that can connect various actors in the field. Thank you so much. Let's check with our online host, Gerardo de Lusenberger. Gerardo, is there any question coming from the online space to any of the speakers?
Okay, hello everybody. Yes, we have a question for Tanya Verberger, which is what can SME retailers do to enhance customer experience? Meaning in-store catering, mobility services, and so on and so forth.
I think also the last 1.5 years showed quite well that you can't do the same stuff for 20 years and will be successful in the long term. So I think there was a lot of awareness created just through COVID that things need to change. And on the other hand, I'm employed at the city marketing, even though I'm not doing city marketing activities. We try to create a lot of awareness within all these trade associations we have on a regional basis in order to, like organizing a multi-sensory shopping workshop in order to create awareness, what is important, what do people look at, or what could be improved. So there's a lot of work from outside, and on the other hand, also the customers show what is needed or what is wanted, because otherwise customers simply don't come anymore.
Thank you. So listening to customers, being a bit creative. Yeah, comment, edit.
I may actually just add to Tanya's saying, which I think is absolutely right. Physical shops are not going to die forever. They're going to go on being there.
Yeah,
But
we don't hear so well.
it's going to be a mixture of digital and offline. Sorry, is it not working here? Okay. So I'll say it again, that the death of the physical shop has been overstated, as Mark Twain almost said. It will go on being a feature of our towns, but it's only going to be in connection with omnichannel, i.e. online, offline, in some way which suits best the company in question. But the thing that I have always taken from discussions with our members is that you have to transform the way that you deal, exactly as Tanya was saying, with customer service. You're going to have to make the shop somewhere where it's interesting to go, perhaps having entertainment, having some, if it's a food shop, having cooking demonstrations or whatever. But above all, training people who may not always be naturally inclined that way in soft skills, in being able to make the customer feel that they care about them. The worst thing you can possibly do as a shopkeeper is somebody comes in and says, "Do you have this?" "No, we don't." Or you ask an assistant, "Do you have that?" "Well, if it isn't on the shelf, I don't think we have it." That is not going to work in the future. You have to have service for customers where the customer feels, this guy is interested in selling me something and will make the effort to sell it to me.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And now let's pause and transition to a visual summary of what has been happening so far here in the room and online. So with this, I'm inviting our graphic recorder, Raquel Benmergui, to share with us what she has heard and captured. Over to you, Raquel.
Thank you so much. Lovely to be here with you all today. So what I've been listening so far is really one of the last points that was said, the importance of the omnichannel, the importance of both and, so looking at being both present and being present online and being present physically, as well as the power of listening. So listening to your customers, listening to entrepreneurs, listening for possibilities of cooperation. And trying to work together. Really, really rich discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raquel. And now it's over to you. We would love to hear some of your ideas and insights on 3 prompts. But first, I'm going to address the online community, and who is going to engage around the same topics, and later we will weave in together the responses from both communities. So, Gerardo de Lutzenberger, you've met him already. He is our online host and will be helping the online community to become active. And what we are asking for you is, okay, let me go like this, just online. So those people who are here in the room, you can now take a deep breath in and out, maybe close your eyes for a few seconds so that you're not too confused later. But those online, those of you who are born January, February, March, or April, your focus question is, what measures can public authorities take to help city center retail SMEs develop more sustainable products, services, and operations? It can be on local level, regional level, national level, EU level, global, even more international level. Any level is welcome. Those of you born in the middle of the year, May, June, July, August, what support do retail SMEs in city center need to go and stay digital? We heard, for example, sometimes in COVID times, some businesses went digital, but then they returned back because it was too difficult to manage both formats. And those born September, October, November, December, what would it take for the city centers to be attractive places to visit? What would be your advice to local authorities? What could be happening? How do you envisage really live, vibrant city centers? And in order to contribute, please join a breakout room by opening the breakout session link. So it says click here to join the breakout session. It's only more to the left and bottom of your screen. Here you see Gerardo, your online host, and then join one breakout room that has your question. And then we see you back in something like good 7-8 minutes. We'll see how it goes. And of course, for those of you here in the Emerald Room, on your tables, you have your prompt already. It's an A4 piece of paper. They're a little bit mixed around the room. This one, for example, is support needed to go and stay digital. And some of them have public authorities question, and some of you, more generally, city centers to be attractive places to visit. So I'm going to give you like, let's say 7 minutes now, first to just discuss among yourself. And after 7 minutes, I will share again another Mentimeter link where you will be able to submit your answers. If you want to just jot down a couple of ideas without any expectation of a huge presentation, you can do so here on these tablecloths. But the real reporting happens a little bit later and you'll get instructions. Thanks. Those of you who are a little bit under-resourced in terms of colleagues, you are super welcome to join a table that has already some people, so you can have a lively exchange, introduce yourself, meet some interesting people. This is the quality of the breaks that we usually have in the conferences, included in the session. So enjoy your conversations.
I had it in mind and I was
see them here. So as to the measures that public authorities can take, we are hearing, okay, city marketing manager. So combining several proposals here, providing local or regional support and incentives for local retail SMEs. Complicated subject, big business universities, parking facilities. We need residences. Residences, can somebody comment on that? What you meant by residences? Yes. There's a microphone. It's coming already your way, just very briefly. And if you can stand up so that we can see you, it helps. Okay.
Work? Okay, thank you. Okay, my name is Valeria Neto. I'm coming from Greece. We write this, that rejuvenation is a very complicated subject because municipality, government, local business, big business, university, all together has to deal with this idea, number one. Number two is we need infrastructure for this, for example, parkings, and plus the facilities that the big mall have outside of the cities. You know what we mean with facility. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is that we need residents, that people that come back to the centers, the city centers, and live there. If we don't have people that live in the cities, then all these stories cannot go on. We tried, and we present in Eurocommerce 3 years before, the open malls in the city center. That was an idea, the closed malls in the city centers. But with these small comments that I made, it's the problems that we had to put this idea to do it anyway. So what we need, residents.
Yep. Thank you, that was helpful. Okay, let's go to the next topic, which is digital. Blah, blah, blah. What matters? Yep, the question of go and stay digital. What results have come? If you can just put the next slide, PJ, thank you. And let us see what has come. Financial assistance and training. And feel that it's safe to go online. Yeah, thank you. Common digital platforms. You know, because the ecosystem is very fragmented. It would help to find more integrative ways. Networking, training again, decision about the target customers in the city, and develop city development strategy. Be more targeted and also on city level. Any comments from anyone in the group? Anything you would like to add, perhaps, in the groups that were addressing this topic? Quickly. No? Okay, then let's go to the third question, which is more broadly. What would it take for the city centers to be attractive places to visit? Safety and security, green spaces, efficient, affordable transport again. Make city centers fun. Combining physical and digital. Click, collect, create. Connection spaces for both customers as well as the retailers. E-commerce, digital hubs for remote workers, community spaces for all ages, climates, decorations, Merry Christmas, free Wi-Fi, safety, free Wi-Fi, clear direction, clean surroundings, cultural events. Again, it's a whole ecosystem of human experiences that, yeah, make us just want to go there. Thank you so much. Any quick comment from anyone that was, yes, there is one, so quickly the microphone, disinfected is coming your way. It helps if you stand up so that people can see who is speaking and just briefly introduce yourself and yeah, anything you want to
Yeah,
add.
thank you. My name is Tessa van Stiphout and I work for the Royal SME Association of the Netherlands. Actually, we did not tackle on this question, but allow me to briefly reflect on what the topics that we discussed. We found what is very important for cities, two things, actually economic factors, but also culture factors. And that was something that is also applicable in this particular question, because we think it's very important, city centers, for our identity, for our community. And actually two things I wanted to stress here that actually the quotes that came across during our conversations. Patricia mentioned like a city is not a place to buy, but a place to be. So I think that's definitely something we can take with us in this discussion. And what are dead cities? Something Aban mentioned here, that are cities without SMEs. So we definitely want to stress that in the discussion here. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a beautiful way to wrap up this part of our session. And yeah, if there are still some things on your posters that would be valuable to share, please just keep sending them through the same link on Mentimeter. And these are all helpful hints also for further ideas, actions, and policy development. And now back to our speakers again, and let's give each like 1 minute. What comes up for you now that you have heard the participants, both online and offline? And let's start there with Neil and really keep it for like 1 minute, and then we will also include Thibault Le Carpentier later. Yeah, thanks, that's helpful.
I think I can be very brief because I think there's been some really interesting comments brought in both from the online and offline people here. The future of retail is going to be a mixture of offline and online. Shops will continue to exist, and if they want to exist in competition with other ones, they're going to have to make, and as Patricia is saying, something where it's interesting to be there. I hate shopping myself. I shouldn't probably be doing the job that I do, but I hate shopping like a lot of men. But actually, you've got to make the shop that you go into a place that you want to come back to, but also be online, even in the simplest sense of, I am here in the high street and you can buy this or that from me. Maybe sometimes that's enough, just to know that there is a shop there that you might not otherwise have noticed. I think the last point I'd make is also investment in making the town a place that people want to come into is a point that I think is really important. I walked through the town for about 10 minutes this morning, and one of the things I noticed was a lot of the houses were falling down. And what I was told was that people have moved out into the suburbs because they could build themselves a new house there. It's cheaper than doing that. If the municipality had the money, I think it would be a great idea for them perhaps to take those houses in hand. Because you want to go to a nice place. If a place looks depressed or it's dirty, as one of the points was made, it's not an attractive place to be.
Thank you.
I don't need it.
No, we just, for safety reasons, you speak 3 hours. Marijke van Hees.
Yes, I think it's time to mention the word COVID. Because past COVID, a lot of SMEs have troubles. They don't have the money and the time to invest in new developments, and they're all struggling. Not all, but a lot of them. So I think when you look at the comments, the SMEs and the retailers, but also the restaurants, all the private entrepreneurs in the cities, in the city centers, we're asking a lot of them to be innovative, to change. And I think when you look at the comments, you can see that support is needed. It's not going by itself. It's not a large one big bang to change. It costs time. It will change. The change will be needed in years. But we can give it stimulants, and we can share knowledge. And I think the EU is really an important partner also in this. It's local, but it's also important to give the good examples a podium like today, and this type of conferences, and also the cooperation with the partners in, for example, in my country, will profit from this support. It's not about much money, but we need this recognition of this problem and need the support of
Thank you.
Of the EU.
Yeah, thank you. Tanja Rehberger.
I completely agree with the two of you when it comes to the money from the European Union especially. I think you can see it with my project. It wouldn't be possible without it. and also agree with what you said, the city is not gonna die. And I would also come back to the topic of the residences. So we did a survey with a phone provider and asked like how many people are on the streets, talking about a city with just 20,000 people, so a small one. And what we found out that there are a lot of people in the street comparably, all over like 24/7, and we were wondering where it came from. And what we found out is that we have flats in the city center, we have restaurants, we have retail chains, but we also have owner-managed stores. So all of them attract different target groups, but it also makes the city center attractive. Besides that, we improve the lighting and so on, so people feel safe because there are no empty and dark roads where you have to be scared.
Thank you, very clear. Veronique?
Yeah, having heard all these elements, I would say a mixture of measures from a mixture of actors, to have a mixture of functions in the town centers, to have nice places to be and to live as a resident. And that will be the future of our cities, but also the rural areas, making sure that we can have vibrant places everywhere.
Thank you. And before we give word to Christine Schreiber, let's check in with Thibault Le Carpentier. Thibault, what is like in a minute, what comes up for you as you are hearing the conversations in this room and the online inputs as well?
Well, I think there is something really important. We need to understand our customers. It's not only a problem of offer, it is also a problem of demand. Residents are not the only consumer in the jobs. And I think that it is also the solution to develop a common vision. If mayors, if shops, and cultural association, social association, all the actors of the city have the same vision of their territory, they are able to find the good solution and the best solutions. It's not a problem to say, okay, we want a marketplace, we want a loyalty program. No. Before, we need to understand the reasons of visit they need. And I think that in France and in other countries, we don't work sufficiently on these elements. If you compare with the largest companies, the retailers, national or international retailers, our budget in terms of marketing research, of sociology and so on, are insufficient. And when we try to work in a country, the first problem is that all the actors have their own vision of the problem, but not a common one. And to create a common one, it's a common vision. I think the main effort is on that.
Yeah, thank you so much for also just organically wrapping up this with a vision proposition. And now, let's welcome to the stage and to your word, Christine Schreiber, Director of Ecosystems 1, Chemicals, Food, Retail from DG GROW, European Commission. From your role and angle, how is the Commission addressing these pressing issues? What's the way forward? And I saw you making notes all the time, so I trust you're going to make some links to what has been raised today. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm obviously here with my head not on chemicals, but on retail, and of course with my still ongoing passion for SMEs from my long years spent with the SME world. Let me just, and I mean, you will have in the background a little bit of publicity for actually an old document, which I think is quite relevant, I mean, which was the guide Facing the Future, which was actually published in 2018 together with a retail communication. And it's just as a backdrop, and actually the next slide has this famous pyramid of solutions, the 6-1. So I think it's interesting just to compare notes because, you know, this dates back to 2018, and I think some of it is actually quite relevant. I mean, I don't want to do a wrap-up of the wrap-up, but what I take away here is, I mean, I heard the word holistic, integrated, I like the retail deal, and I really think in order to rejuvenate, or I prefer revitalize, not because it's a hashtag, but also, you know, we don't necessarily have to be young, I think we have to be vital in the city centers. We have to bring together the different actors in order to create what many said is sort of like experience and make the town centers a worthwhile place to visit. So I think this integrated is very important, and this includes mobility solutions, because that was, I mean, some people mentioned it, but I think where things went wrong very often was with wrong mobility solutions. Banning cars completely, I mean, like Brussels is the best experience. For many years, I'd never bought anything anymore in Brussels because you just couldn't get there. In terms of now, I think things have improved, etc. But then it's also, I think it's important to have a good communication, because if people think you can't get there and you won't find a parking, then they don't go. So I think it's really an integrated approach you need, where you cater for the different needs. I mean, the young ones, the people with mobility issues, and I think that's this integrated approach which is important. The other thing which, I mean, I heard a lot and which I think is very relevant for our work is, I liked your sentence, you know, shine with your customers offline. I think that's absolutely crucial because I mean, as Neil and others said, of course, I mean, the future will be sort of omni-channel, will be some offline, some online, but I think one has to concentrate on one's unique selling point. And for shops, by definition, the unique selling point are the soft skills that you can actually return as a customer, and I think that needs actually upskilling. I mean, you need a truly trained, I mean, if you're an SME owner, I mean, I hope you have the skills yourself, otherwise you have to train yourself. But I mean, soft skills, but also the issue of trust. I mean, the world is getting increasingly complex. And I think actually many people are quite happy not to browse through, you know, endlessly on the internet, but they're actually happy if they have a shop owner they trust to buy their product there, and they know they can return it if there's an issue. And I think, but that needs skills. And I mean, we're working actually in the context of the Skills Pact on, I mean, also on the retail sectors on the upskilling. And I think that's something which is really, really important. Holistic also means, and I heard different people, I mean, intervening on this, that we also combine, I mean, have a really integrated approach also with our regional funding. Because, I mean, we do a lot of regional funding, and I think here I mean, this is also something I take away, and I will certainly also discuss with my colleagues also in DG Regio, that we have a more integrated approach here, because indeed, I mean, and I saw at some of the proposals, you know, like integrated funding there. And I think there are many, many interesting things, also encouraging like pop-ups, etc., which can basically occupy, I mean, stores when there's a problem. Sorry, this is my phone. I hope it will stop. Apologies, I think. Okay. And finally, I mean, you know that we are working on these ecosystem transition pathways. And here, I think this is very valuable input for us, for these pathways, because I think for the pathways to work, it has to be meaningful for the actors. It has to be this integrated approach. And I have to say, I'm taking a lot of issues with me. And I'm also inviting you after this session, you know, please get back to us, because we are working now on these pathways. I mean, Eurocommerce, as United, they all know, and they asked for contributions. But I mean, to really come in with some of these ideas, because it will only work if we have this holistic approach. I mean, finally, on the, I think it was also interesting on the digitalization. For me, what I heard is not every shop has to have a fully fledged digital presence, because that is, I think, scary. And you said that, you know, taking away the fear of social media, but you need to be found. And even people, I would say, like me, who are not particularly sort of always digital, I mean, I would, of course, look, you know, where is a certain shop? What are the opening hours? And I think at least that, and some sort of friendly picture that, you know, which doesn't seem totally out of date, that the shop has closed like 3 years ago. And I think this is something which is also relatively more easy in terms of upskilling. It comes back again to our work on the skills. And so, I mean, again, I think lots of food for thought, at least, you know, for me and for us in the Commission, and looking forward to getting more input. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So nice, to have experience that policymakers are really listening to people from the ground. And the very final wrap-up is actually, again, a visual one. So I'm inviting Raquel Benmergui to give us her bigger picture of today's session.
Thank you so much. I think that we've wrapped up several. Very much.
Thank you. And maybe just keep this slide here for my last minute, because it's so rich and, you cannot absorb it in 5 seconds. And with this, I'm just extending a big thank you to everyone who contributed, first and foremost to all the participants online and on-site, to all the speakers, to Raquel and Gerardo, and to our fabulous team backstage that so seamlessly wove together all these worlds. That's how we are all living, learning to live and work digital. And the program continues at 6 p.m. in the Europa Convention Hall with European Enterprise Promotion and Small and Mid-Caps Awards ceremony, etc., etc., etc. So you have a bit of a...
7 p.m.
Oh, it's 7 p.m. Okay, 7 p.m. In my program, it's still 6 p.m. Thank you for helping navigate this in a good way. 7 p.m. So you have a good 2 hours of time to a bit decompress and do whatever meets your needs at this point. Thank you all very much, and see you later.